Good afternoon, Binancians. Welcome to this week's episode of Binance Beach. I'm joined by Crypto OG and Binancian Jessica Walker. Jess, welcome to Binance Beach.
I'm excited to be here. It's a shame that we couldn't film it on an actual beach with a cocktail, but it's still equally as sunny over here with our Binance merch. So thank you for having me, Liam.
Well, maybe as the bull market really kicks off, we'll be able to afford a beachside studio. That's in the plan, in the works. But yeah, it's great to have you on board. You've just been at the BitcoinMENA conference this week. I'd love to hear how that was.
It was amazing. So I think for anyone that's unfamiliar, the Bitcoin Magazine brand have these conferences around the world. It started off with Bitcoin Miami and it's kind of overflowed into Nashville. We had Austin as well. So like a really huge name of brands in the US. And they also started rolling them out in Amsterdam last year. This year was the first time they had one in the Middle East region. So it was a really exciting time to have it in, I guess, the Binance team that is based here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi in our back garden, as it were. But people flew in from all over the world. And I think one amazing thing about Bitcoin conferences is it kind of felt like a high school reunion for a lot of us that were attending, because there's people that you've known for years that will come from all over the world and fly in. And the speaker list this year was amazing. I was at Bitcoin Amsterdam last October, and Bitcoin was around $35,000 per BTC. And it was October in Europe, so it was a little bit drizzly and wet and rainy, and you could feel that markets were a little bit slow. You know, it'd been kind of the 2023, I guess you could kind of call it a little bit of a bear market, and things hadn't really started picking up yet. And the difference in energy this time around, we are now December 2024, we had Eric Trump flew in and was speaking, which the crowd went absolutely wild for. That was definitely a highlight. CZ was speaking as well. There was a queue of around 400 people to the Binance booth to have photographs with him. We had Anthony Scaramucci giving talks. And then there was just a huge range of people that were building in the space, big KOLs that have been talking about Bitcoin for years. So it really just kind of underlines that the industry is at a very strong point right now, where you see like a buzzing expo floor, a stage conference room full of speakers. It's quite a good testament. And I think during the live stream itself, there was 1.5 million people that tuned in over the 2 days to watch the live stream. So it just shows, yeah, but it also is like how amazing that you don't have to physically go to these events. You can tune into the live desk, and the power of social media means anyone can be up to date and watch these things in real time. So the numbers were pretty telling for, I guess, where we are in the market right now.
Well, I was one of those 1.5 million. I tuned in to watch CZ's interview as well. That was awesome to see him back out on the speaking circuit, and to hear his takes, particularly on Bitcoin, were awesome. But let's pivot to Bitcoin. Let's look at the Bitcoin price for the week. We usually kick off with this section. Of course, this week we had a bit of a pullback. We were sitting above 100K earlier in the week, and then we had a bit of a tragic rundown. Alts were bleeding, down on Bitcoin, down even as low as 94. I think we bottomed out 94,500. But we've since seen a very V-shaped bounce, and we've run back up above 100K. In terms of local Bitcoin news too, Australia had a huge announcement this morning, I think it was, or yesterday late. One of our superannuation funds, which is like our pension retirement funds, the first one has started buying Bitcoin. In terms of institutional adoption locally, this is huge. They only bought 27 million, but it's great to see that this group of institutions, specifically in Australia, is now open to our asset class, which is fantastic. Across our other tokens on the week, like I said, there was a real V-shaped bounce here in the crypto market cap as well. We ran back to 3.4 trillion from a high of nearly 3.7, but that bounce has been really strong. And as we look down the top 100, apart from Bitcoin and ETH, which are stable and a touch up on the week, most altcoins are down a smidge. But given that we're used to seeing pretty significant pullbacks in bull markets of 30, 40, sometimes 50%. This one really felt like a pullback for ants, I thought. Do you have any thoughts on the market at the moment, Jess? How are you seeing things in crypto land?
So I am not a trader. I am a long-term dollar cost average and hodler. So for the kind of week by week charts, I don't tend to keep too much of a close eye. I just think it's remarkable to hear, and we had this conversation a few times during BitcoinMENA, to hear the conversation of, Bitcoin's consolidating at $99,000. And for people that have been in the space, and for anyone that's watching that's been here for a few years, like, it is still a pinch me moment. I think the market right now is looking pretty hot, but it's looking also quite healthy. I think what we've seen with the inflows of spot Bitcoin ETFs still being fairly strong, it does seem like this is quite a healthy stance of hovering in this 100K benchmark. So it's just a really optimistic time for the markets. And if we look at some of the kind of traded volumes and track records we've seen, I've got a little fun fact for you, Liam, because one of the team pointed this out to me last week. So on November the 20th, if we looked at the last 30 working days, the New York Stock Exchange, its traded volume was $1.75 trillion. Binance's was double that at 3.5 trillion, which was
That's
also
insane.
I know, the traded volume of the NASDAQ for 30 days. So Binance has out-traded volume the NASDAQ. And it just shows, like, crypto is right now a really kind of hot asset. But as you pointed out with the coin market cap index, fear and greed is still below 80 at this point as well. So we're not really at this huge retail sentiment of kind of peak euphoria, people on X going absolutely bananas. And this is a conversation that we had during BitcoinMENA on the live desk with a few of the Bitcoin magazine and Bitcoin podcasters, was when you see like the local top is in of the markets and you see kind of peak euphoria of people really talking about Bitcoin and crypto on Saturday night TV, that's when you're kind of like, okay, the market is like red hot. But right now what we're seeing is traded volumes, we're seeing strategic reserve conversations come through, we're seeing a really kind of political conversation around the elections come through with Bitcoin. And these are really healthy long-term conversations. So it's optimistic.
It absolutely is. It's hard to make a bearish case for crypto right now between the US administration and between some of the significant institutions that we have leveling buy pressure at this asset and committing buy pressure to this asset for the next 12 months. Even just from Saylor's perspective, I think Saylor's looking to scoop up such a large proportion of the Bitcoin that will be mined in the next 12 months. That buy pressure alone, and he's one guy running one company, one institution, and we're starting to see the Saylor playbook run out in other jurisdictions, other companies. So it is pretty hard to make a bearish case for crypto right now. Where were you when Bitcoin crossed 100K? What did that moment look like for you?
I think I was watching the Gladiator 2 movie in the cinema. And I was there with my friends who don't work in crypto, but they've known me for a few years. So they know that I'm like the crazy crypto friend. And they could just see that I was just on my phone scrolling on X. And they were like, we've lost her. She's either asleep in the cinema or she's checking crypto prices. And today is the crypto prices conversation. But I don't know if this is the same for you, Liam, and for anyone watching, but I think this has been a conversation for so long. And I remember interviewing Anthony Pompliano in 2019, and he's saying, Bitcoin will be 100K at some point. And people were commenting that's an outlandish price prediction, or when will it happen? Will it happen earlier? Maybe 2021, there was quite a few expectations during that market cycle that we see 100K. That when it happened, people within the space, we were kind of like, okay, well, we kind of knew it was going to happen. What's next? Now we need to just kind of keep educating, keep building, and keep going. It was almost like the kind of 2 minutes after New Year's Eve where you realize, like, okay, well, you're still exactly the same. Nothing's changed. You just carry on as usual. And that, for me, was kind of how 100K felt. There's still such a long way to go on the adoption standpoint that we're kind of gearing up for the tipping point, but we're not there yet. And it's kind of a long-term journey and goal. Where were you when Bitcoin hit 100K?
I was on a call with one of our vendors, and it was exactly like the meme where the guy kind of is checking the charts and he puts up the little firecracker and then he just keeps working. And we just went, oh, Bitcoin's 100K. Congratulations. Oh, congratulations to you too. So yeah, what are we doing next month? It was exactly that kind of funny moment, little firecracker, like, oh yeah. So yeah, I think I've heard a few people talk about it as equally overwhelming and underwhelming, exactly as you've described. It's such a milestone. It's such a significant, even point of validation. Like I felt validation even for the industry and for the asset class, just with that mental milestone, mental hurdle that we've jumped. But
Yeah.
it was definitely a special moment, and I got to call some friends and congratulate them on their conviction. And yeah, it was cool, but it was fun to spend it with one of our vendors working and continuing to build and continue to drive towards that adoption. So yeah, there's a nice moment there for sure.
Yeah, you know what though, and I'm not expecting any thank you text, but I remember getting some friends into Bitcoin when it was around $8,000 per BTC, and I was like, no one sent me a thank you text, and I've been shilling Bitcoin to my friends for like 8 years, maybe. Like my mum got into Bitcoin in 2018. I was like, no one got a little, maybe that's a greeting card that we need to propose as some Binance merch for next year is like, thank you for getting me into crypto in this date. And you can pass it on during each price milestone. But yeah, I agree with you that it is also validation for the industry as a whole. And I'm not sure if you got the text messages from friends start to trickle through of like, wow, so what's Bitcoin going to do next? How's things looking? But when non-crypto people do kind of ask and show interest in the space, price has to come first for there to be interest from new retail. So it's just acknowledgement that there is going to be a new influx of people willing to learn and willing to get started, which for us, like doing education and content in the space is like all we can ask for is this level of interest. So it's all systems go.
Absolutely. Let's pivot to talk a bit more about you, because I'd love to hear a bit more about your experience. You've been in crypto for nearly or over a decade. You've had the chance to be on stage, work with and interview some of the biggest names in our industry, from Adam Back, Jeremy Allaire from Circle, Arthur Hayes, Raoul Paul, Pascal from Ledger, of course, CZ, Richard. But yeah, who stands out for you in your career as someone you've shared a stage with, and why?
That's such a hard conversation. I've been incredibly lucky to be in the space for 9 years, 10 years next year, and get to interview people and have these kind of conversations, because it just, the people that are building in the space and the people like, as you've mentioned, kind of CZ, He from Binance, and then you've got kind of the Jeremy Allaires of the group, people like Adam Back, who is kind of one of the cryptographers that inspired Satoshi with data timestamping. These are all people that have seen something before the wider market has seen it, and seen not even the gap that cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin provide, but actually they've seen how a new system can really benefit a global economy and a global ecosystem, and how the freedom of money is such an important testament to where we're going, and really thinking about the end user in a use case that for us as individuals, we find it quite hard to comprehend just how disruptive blockchain technology can be. So for the people that do understand and have really pivoted and had to really run through water with just how challenging it is to onboard people to come in, invest in you, and then work with you, and then build with you, and then you have to push through these hurdles of regulatory challenges and work with the regulators and work with the kind of different infrastructures of kind of corporations. I think they're all visionaries in their own right. So that's just that's such an interesting kind of time to be around, and kind of conversations to have. I first interviewed Adam back in 2018 in Malta, and I think that's just so fascinating, because both Adam Back and also Scott Stornetta, who is also kind of a crypto punk from the 90s, who is also cited in the Satoshi white paper 3 times, both of them invest so much in still educating people in crypto. And I mean, that is 9 pieces of paper that has just gone down in history of being kind of the Bible of blockchain. So the Satoshi white paper itself is just something which, if anyone should read it, they absolutely should take a little listen and look. But also, like, once a year to have a recap and read the white paper. But for people to be cited in the white paper from Satoshi and to still be so humble and invest time in just still explain the narrative of like why Bitcoin and blockchain is so important. For me, that is just so remarkable that that is kind of 14, 15 years down the line, they're still investing that time. So I think in that regard, everyone in the space that's building has been so fascinating in their own right. But the people that are there before the Bitcoin white paper even came out, that still invest time into educating people, I think there is a special seat for them as being just like absolutely inspirational in what they've built.
There's something so beautiful about the way Bitcoin brings people back into the ecosystem. People exactly like that who have, quote unquote, made it, could probably never work again, could have all the freedom that they want in the world. There's something about Bitcoin, there's something about that mission and this value set that brings people back to work on the ecosystem, to work on education, to work on the asset class, and to continue to help drive adoption by individuals, by companies, and by now nation states, which is just remarkable. I think it's such an interesting factor and such an interesting part of this industry, the way it just doesn't let people go emotionally.
Yeah. And also the humility, like the humbleness that we do see with people that have been building for so long. You'll get people that are, for example, like Roger Ver, Bobby Lee, that when they would go to conferences, there was someone that we met at the BitcoinMENA conference that I've known for maybe 7 or 8 years. And I came up to him and I thought, I've got to like say to you because we've known each other for a long time. And at the conferences 8 years ago, he used to give people a whole Bitcoin. Like he would say, have you heard of this thing called Bitcoin? I'm going to give you one right now. I'm going to send it to you. And he was known with the online casino space in the gaming industry as someone that would go to the conferences and explain why blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies were a really good utensil for the online gaming industry. And there was a really good collaboration of two spaces. So he would go to these events that people had definitely not heard of crypto and send them a Bitcoin. And I came up to him today and I thought, like Bitcoin's 100K now. How do you feel? You've given away millions of dollars over the year. He said, no, I've given away probably, 50 Bitcoin. And there are some people that are so early on in the space that they do and they always will view the value of one Bitcoin as one Bitcoin. They don't focus on the price so much. They focus on the long-term potential of the industry and the ecosystem. And they have no egos. They're the most humble people, and they still view it as, there's, so for example, with Binance now, we're near 250 million users, 25 million across our socials, but it's like the work's still not done. We've still got more people to educate. We've still got more of this positive message to spread. And that's one narrative that you feel a lot at Bitcoin conferences.
What brings you back to crypto year after year when you've been here for so long?
I never leave. It's kind of easy to stay. And I think when you are, so crypto is cyclical. I think if you're new to crypto and you're watching, you're kind of like, oh, year by year, how does that look? Well, if you kind of follow the markets, you kind of see typically like 4-year cycles of kind of, we're seeing a buildup right now, and it kind of correlates with the 4-year halving. So we had the halving early on this year, and then in the 12 to 18 months after the halving, you'll see a upward trajectory in prices. Normally then that's followed by some form of a correction, and then you'll have maybe 12 to 18 months of a market lull, and then you'll go through and have another halving, and the whole circle will rinse and repeat, start again. And it's interesting because in times like this, where markets are really picking up and things are getting really busy, that's where you almost don't really have time to network and kind of build and form relationships as much as you like, because it's just like content, education, traffic, new users. It's all like so customer focused. Like, you're a new customer, you've got into crypto. How can we educate you? How can we make your journey as seamless as possible? What are the questions that you want answering? So it's really content focused. And then when we see that the market kind of goes and takes a little bit more of a lull, people are more ready to invest in the momentum of why they're in the space, rather than like, what should we look at and how should we look at the markets and how should we look at the data. They'll look a little bit more at like what's being built and what kind of narratives to look into. So it's almost like the content channels are different, because you as an investor, if you guys are watching now, right now, you're probably looking at like, what does the data mean? What are the charts meaning? How can I get started? What are some of the questions to answer when it comes to like actually just trading and investing? But when we see a little bit more of a kind of calm markets, that's when you can look a little bit more into potentially like joining to work in crypto or to build or to collaborate and kind of formulate ecosystems. So actually, each year there's something which is for everyone, and it's kind of like a different cycle of content. And I'm sure you'll find the same, Liam, as like the questions that people ask year by year are a little bit different. So it's more just this different set of challenges, and you get to adjust slightly. But the people that stay when the markets are a little bit quieter, and then you see them kind of when the market starts to uptick, saying like, oh, thank you so much because your video really helped me, and now I'm able to do this, or like it's been a really successful year for me. I think that's great because you watch your community who can interact with you on X or YouTube. They can follow your journey, and they can also say, this has been a really beneficial 4-year market cycle, and ultimately your end goal, people here for the long game. This is a 10, 20, 50-year process rather than we don't think in 4-year sprints.
Yeah, absolutely. And the verticals that come out every cycle too, the new problems that blockchain tries to solve, and not all of those are successful, but it's so fascinating to see the tech applied in so many different areas and so many different ways. What are you looking forward to next year for 2025? What are you excited about for crypto?
So I think the year's going to go off to a really strong start with President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration. And that's going to come in January, and that's going to come with a whole heap of expectations for our industry. And I'm really excited to see what that will bring for crypto globally, because I think the whole world is watching right now to see. I know we say in like kind of when we look at the macroeconomics, but like when the US sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, and that can be for better or for worse. And I think right now the markets are so optimistic of a pro-Bitcoin president and what that will mean for a strategic Bitcoin reserve, what that will mean for investors, how institutions will view the ETF flows. We've also got a huge range of new ETF products that have been applied for by the different ETF issuers in the US. So we've got a different basket of cryptocurrencies. So Bitwise, for example, has got a new ETF product they've applied for, which has not yet been approved, but the expectations for 2025 are a different suite of ETF products that are not just Bitcoin focused or Ethereum focused, but I think we've got applications for a Solana, Litecoin, Ripple spot ETFs, and then also the basket of different cryptocurrencies. So there's going to be more and more headline news from traditional outlets, which will have the words Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and digital assets, which for us is great because that just underlines and legitimizes the space. There used to be this running joke for the kind of Bitcoin content creators that there is the Bitcoin obituaries, which is every single time mainstream media has listed Bitcoin is dead. And I looked at it last week actually for something, and Bitcoin has been listed as dead by traditional outlets even this year. Even in 2024, there was mainstream media articles being like, Bitcoin's dead, everyone should just go home. And I think it's just so telling that we're starting to get to an uptick of, you cannot ignore this now. You are going to see in 2025 such positive headlines that are pro-crypto and pro-Bitcoin, that there is going to be a huge influx of new investors, new people that are willing to learn about crypto. And I think something that we're here at Binance to do is we're here to educate you, make sure your journey is as smooth as possible, and just make sure that you leave with a full suite of information so that you are ready and fully equipped to go into the next step of your not just investing journey, but your relationship with this new money, which is cryptocurrencies.
As an aside, the Bitwise predictions for 2025 are a great read as well. Well worth looking up for anybody who is diving deeper into our industry. Thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. It was an absolute pleasure to hear a few more of your thoughts. Do you have anything closing for our Australian audience that you'd like to leave us with?
Yes, I really hope, guys, you can keep me posted for the next range of Australian crypto events, because I have never been to Australia and I would love to go. And Liam, thank you so much for inviting me. I really, really appreciate it. I really enjoyed the conversation. And next time we will do it on the beach.
We will. That's a deal. We'll definitely get you out for an event. We'll do an event in Byron, and we'll go to Watergoes, and we'll hang on the beach in Watergoes. We'll have a cocktail at Ray's, and we'll do a podcast. That sounds
Amazing.
perfect. All right. I've got a couple of campaigns to run you guys through quickly before we wrap up the episode. First of all, get more bang for your Bitcoin this Christmas. We're running a promotion where you can get up to 60 USDT in rewards for a deposit, a trade, and a referral. So check that one out. I've dropped a link in the YouTube description, or you can find it on our official Binance Australia Twitter. 60 USDT in rewards sitting there for you just to complete those actions. Well worth your time. Also, as a call out, it's our Bintern's birthday. Orlando, very happy birthday to you, mate. He is running a promotion now for the next 12 days. We're doing the intern's 12 days of Christmas. He's got $100 worth of BNB to give away every day. And he'll be giving you guys fun little tasks and jobs to compete for that prize. I'll finish with a disclaimer. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Please make sure you like, follow, and subscribe us on our channels. And please note that this discussion includes insights from non-affiliated third parties and key opinion leaders. Binance provides this platform for informational and educational purposes only and is not responsible for any content or insights provided. This should not be considered as financial, tax, or investment advice from Binance. Have a great weekend, guys. We will catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in to Binance Beach.